It again. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End podcast, another live stream edition here to break down. You getting that feedback?
I don't think so.
Okay, I apologize, everybody. I'm literally hearing feedback of everything we're doing in my headphones about on like a 10-second delay. Well, this is unfortunate. Hold on, let me try to take my headphones out here.
Technical difficulties right out the gate.
Yeah, geez Louise, man. I think that fixed it.
Okay.
For now. No feedback on the live stream, so that's good. So I'll just keep the headphones out for now. False start, everybody. Welcome into another live stream edition of the North End podcast. I'm your host, Zac Graham, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. 2024 schedule is here. It's been less than 24 hours since we last convened on this channel. Lots happened, though, especially at the end of the draft there yesterday. How you feeling over the last 20 hours or so?
Man, Christmas come early. Just for everyone watching the live stream, there's a lot of activity going on in the old Riverside apartment right now. Mooch is up, just ate. We got potential maintenance men coming in, so you might have to bear with me a little bit. There he goes with the clicky clacks. Look, Christmas came early, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, George. Yes, I agree. Get me out, bro. So, Christmas come early. Took a look at the schedule. Very excited. Obviously, we have the happenings with Nate after we selected him.
Yeah.
Our boy goes to the opposition. Not thrilled about that at all. But, this is all gearing up for all of the Austin FC fans to be back in soccer church come early 2024, which I know everyone is really looking forward to. I am very excited about. So I'm eager to jump into this schedule. I think I'll predict a win for every single matchup that we have, anticipating a perfect 34-0 season. So let's do this, baby.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the 2024 schedule here. We'll pull it up on the screen for those watching on the YouTube replay of this. Definitely going on the audio feed, especially since yesterday's stream was made obsolete about an hour after we ended talking about Nate Jones. Good to see. No opinions in here. Giving an opinion. Whoa. I know. That is the reaction usually when the Austin FC live stream gets fired up. And we'll get Ari's take here first. Off the top. Ari saying the schedule is mid as fuck. Let's get that out of the way first. And E, your first take to me before we started the stream was that we couldn't have a much tougher start to the season. And my response to you was, I don't think we could have an easy start at all because there were only a handful of teams that were worse than us last time we saw everybody. So I think it was going to look daunting regardless. But I guess let's start with the beginning of the schedule here. What are your takeaways?
Look, I know that last we saw this club that we weren't better than many teams, but these are some teams that are definitely better. Powerhouses here. You see Seattle playoff club, St. Louis playoff club, Philadelphia playoff club, Orlando playoff club, Dallas playoff club. Minnesota made it, yeah.
I believe they got edged out there on the final day, if I recall correctly. But I can make sure. Gotta say, some of those fringe teams, I guess, kind of already just in the past for me in terms of my memory of last season. Those other teams that were on the bubble, pulling up that playoff schedule. Yeah, I do not believe Minnesota made it.
Well, even though they didn't make it, we understand the firepower that team has. We understand that they have one of the best players in the league in Emmanuel Reynoso. Timo Pukki, obviously a great talent. Seattle, you see there, man, that's a difficult place to go and play. We've had some recent success up there, but still, that's not something that I'm overly eager to watch us going up there into Lumen Field. St. Louis, glad they're coming back that early. We got to get them back. I did say that I wanted to see Philly, so I'm very excited about that, see their club, see the guys that they just continue to churn out, the homegrowns. A big fan of their entire organization. Orlando, hopefully the return of Felipe there. He's still with them, yes?
I'm not sure. I actually think I can pull up Orlando's because he wasn't on more than a 1 year there. Orlando City option decisions.
Man, I'd love to bring him back.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Exercise. They did pick up Felipe. So
Okay.
the opposite of how Austin treated Felipe on that 1+1. And good for him, man. I'm not surprised to see that he made such an impact there that they want to keep him around.
Do we know if the Copa Tejas schedule is going to be similar to what it was last year? Like, is this first Dallas game? Does this count?
It's fucking unbalanced again. So, like, I saw the 3 each on our schedule, and all you have to do, MLS, is schedule that third match between Dallas and Houston, and they did not do it. So we've got 6 Texas matchups. Each of those teams has 5, and I imagine we'll do it the same as we did last year. First 2 games against Austin just don't count.
Well, regardless if they count towards Copa Tejas or not, always want to beat those guys. So getting that rivalry game there at the end of March, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. At home for that first matchup. And again, we'll take the tune-ups there. Like, just because it doesn't count for Copa Tejas doesn't mean that it's going to be any less intense on the pitch or in the stadium. So just staying here on the first, month plus for a moment. You mentioned Seattle, St. Louis, Philly, Orlando. Those are all – are those the top – those are 3 of the top 4 teams in terms of the standings last year? Because St. Louis, Seattle was 1-2 in the West.
Yep.
In the East was Cincy, Orlando, Columbus, Philly.
Yep.
We know Philly's pedigree. They were on 55 points last year. Of course, Cincinnati sets or comes close to setting the points record there with 69, right? That was very nice for them. And Dallas, man, yeah, it is a gauntlet to start for sure.
Look, man, and I am worried about, coming out flat. You look at these first, we got 6 games here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 6 games. And it's like, the hangover from last year and the poor results and the poor finish and the trades that went into play and the upheaval with all of the movement, has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths here. And if you start out this season pretty rough, those cheers and chants are going to be getting pretty loud for some more changes. So I'm hoping that we can come out strong here. You get 4 home games though there in about a month. That's awesome. I can't wait to be back. I'm just thinking about sitting in the north end there.
Yeah. Yep. And that's, I think Minnesota at home, we have never started on the road as long as Q2 Stadium has been open, right? Of course, we started in 21 with, I think, 8 straight matches away. But 3 years in a row opening at home, I like that. And that is probably my favorite part of this schedule, this early schedule, outside of the fact that we do get to see Philly, and you and I have wanted to not just play against Philly. Again, that's not an easy matchup, but I want to see us try to compete against the best, even if we're maybe not favored in some of those matchups. So
absolutely. Good litmus test right here, man, to see what we're looking at, to see what we're working with. Obviously the roster has not been completed and filled out, but this is a nice little gauntlet here to see what we're capable of. And obviously, like we learned last year and the year prior to that, it's a long ass season, man. Yep. And getting off to a good start would be wonderful. But we're just going to have to stay the course, go forward, get into these April and, these spring months, starting with April there and keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, Minnesota, for the record, was almost identical to us last year, finished 2 points above. But in terms of goals for and against, very, very similar. We had a few more of both, but they were 11th. We were 12th. So both teams obviously looking to get started on the right foot there. Especially with the teams that we have coming up there. Just let's check in on who's here with us. I know we're going to get to a lot of this. Good to see Paul in there. Shout out to the Verde Pendant Pod. Said he likes getting those Philly and NYCFC matches at home first before getting smacked out there. Yeah, and we'll talk about the Eastern Conference opponents here. Good to see Krugs tuning in from who knows where, parts unknown around the world. Shout out to Krugs there. Yeah, I thought that was a good point. We had talked about that a few weeks ago, right? That we had Miami at home, right? The Higuain Campana team. Breck Shea in that one, keeping Julio on side for one of those first goals in 2022. So no Messi on the schedule, which means we're just going to have to see him in the MLS Cup final, I guess.
There we go. We'll take that. Good to see Krugs for sure. Usually I'm playing with the takes. Usually on point with the takes there. And Miami would have been wonderful. Everyone was hoping for it, but you can't always get what you want. Shout out Rolling Stones.
We see Martin in here saying the most exciting day for Austin is the last game, which decision day is home against the Rapids. I don't think we could have set up better. Like if we need 3 points on this decision day, home against the worst team in the Western Conference last year, looks pretty good.
I mean, we know this thing is going to go down to the wire for playoff positioning. Have we gotten any sort of update with the format this year?
No, none of that yet.
So they're still looking at the wild card teams as well with the plans. So
the way Garber was talking about it, he was saying success this, good things that. And to me, I just think that means they made more money because there's more games and it's going to stay the same. Getting more teams in is better for their bottom line. Paul also chiming in saying, it's much easier to be, quote, a playoff club with 9 teams that get in, of course, 8 and 9 in the wild card. There's our boy, one of the North End Pirates. Good to see Mike in here holding that Copa Tejas. And I guess let's go ahead. Let's jump into Copa Tejas here in a minute. Good to see Reglis in here saying, real question is, will Brandon Clegg actually play at Q2? Brandon Clegg, of course, coming there with Philly on March 16th. Ari's pointing out, Chicago Fire, the only remaining club we have never played in the league. Also pointing out, of course, we played them, lost to them, Chicago booting us out of the Open Cup last season. Other North End Pirate, good to see B in here, says Vancouver birthday weekend trip. So we'll have to discuss that in the North End, of course. And he's been in hiding, cursing all the short corners, whether he's watching them on TV, in the independent media game. It's Big Fudge. Good to see. Yep, we can't wait, Fudge. One of our 123 brethren there. Ari saying brutal start to the season. We could be on 3 points or less out of the first 6 matches. And man, the way the season closed last year, that's not a crazy take.
Nope.
Obviously I'm going to be just ever the optimist. I'm going to think we're going to do a little bit better here, but I mean, the last we saw all of these, all 29 teams, right? That is certainly not a crazy take.
I totally agree there. I'm glad, as Paul pointed out, to have Philly at home. Hopefully that, gives us a bit of another advantage against them to try to get some points on the board here, man. But it's going to be an interesting start. And to your point about, or I forget who's – oh, no, you brought up the Colorado game at the end there. Yep. Those 3 points at the end, it's going to matter. I mean, for playoff positioning, depending on if we're hopefully not in the, top 5 pick selection again.
Yeah, hopefully we're not tanking to get that first pick. Next year's Stephen Anor.
could move us. But yeah, decision day is always fun. We haven't had the most amount of success against Colorado. So I don't know if this is some sort of strange trap game going on here, but let's keep it rolling. Let's see where we're at. You want to say how stuff?
Yeah, I just want to shout out here. Jorge loves donuts, and he loves Copa Tejas here, saying Texas will bleed verde and black. And we're going for the three-peat here, right?
Yes,
because whether you like it or not, Austin FC is the back-to-back Copa Tejas champions. Product of the late 80s says what happens is we start 0-3, and goddamn, I hope not. But you certainly could with this schedule.
Look, Minnesota, first game at home, I think that's a win.
Yeah, I agree.
I really do. I think you get 3 points there. Seattle on the road would be fortunate to walk away with a point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think that we're going to be up for this St. Louis game on the 9th of March there at home. They embarrassed us last year out of the break. They obviously had the first game of the season where we had our grand collapse. That's kind of set the tone for the year. So I think we're really going to be up for that game. And you look at that St. Louis team and the way that they kind of flamed out in the playoffs and the success that they had initially, and it reminds me of certain like quarterback situations where you have a guy who comes onto the field, sets the world on fire, and then you get some tape on them, and then you start to understand what their tendencies are and what they like to do. And that could have happened to St. Louis because obviously they weren't dealing with any sort of like rash of injuries outside of the Klaus injury for a while there in the middle of the season. So I do think that we can get 3 there as well. Not saying it's a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that is a team that we can beat at home.
Yeah, I agree. And then if you can grab 9 points in these first 6 games, I think we're feeling all right. just based on who we're playing there. But again, so much can change in the next 2 months between now and opening day there on February 24th. Let's jump in here to the Copa Tejas schedule, because Andrew's saying, how many times do we need to play Houston and Dallas? And it's the same as last year. Austin has 3 games against each of their Texas rivals, and Dallas and Houston play each other only twice. So I think we're just going to see the same thing from that Copa Tejas committee. The first 2 games for Austin, first game against Dallas and first game against Houston, will not count towards those Copa Tejas standings. But I mean, who cares, man? Like these count towards regular season standings, and we need to win all of these games.
Absolutely. And I mean, it just seems flawed to not have them have to play 3, as well versus one another. And it's like, if these games versus Dallas and Houston are, oh, what the hell?
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know how that's in there twice, but yeah, only one St. Louis game there in April. But you see 2 St. Louis games out of the way by mid-April.
Yep. And I mean, so before I saw that error there, it would have been nice if the schedule maybe had those, Houston games or those Dallas games as one of our, 3 games in 14 days or what have you, 2 games, in the same week there for some potential rotation. Because I don't know if MLS is paying any sort of mind to Copa Tejas shit, but obviously it's important to us.
Right.
So then you see San Jose there, very winnable game at home. You like that?
Well, it's one of the teams we have not beat yet.
Yeah, for sure. But at home,
it is a winnable game.
It's a winnable game for sure. Going up to St. Louis, that's a very difficult place to play on the 14th. I imagine that we do not get any points there. Oh, snap. 420.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, blaze it out there in Houston on April 20th.
Smoking Dynamo Pack that day, baby. Let's go.
And then national TV, an afternoon match here on a Saturday with Diego and the Galaxy coming to town. And good to see Vanilla in here saying, what I missed? No Messi? My bank account is safe. Yes, it is indeed. And Paul smoking that Dynapack. Nobody pull up the picture. Nobody pull up the picture of our boy wearing that certain color. So
boy no more.
So
he was he was almost our boy. He was now he is absolutely not our boy.
So I think this Dallas on March 30th, Houston at Houston on April 20th. Both of those will not count towards Copa Tejas standings. So let's see where they will count. And if this is where it starts counting, you get your midweek at Dallas and then home at Houston. And that's a tough, I guess, that would be weekend at Dallas, midweek home Houston, and then weekend home KC. So very packed mid-May schedule there with the first 2 Copa Tejas games that we assume will count.
So, I mean, they're really trying to put us up against it for this Copa Tejas. Maybe they do care a lot. They want some,
we had that last year, remember? Because the back-to-back at home where we won 6-0 on aggregate against those 2 teams, that was a month later, right? Or that was late June, I think, before the Leagues Cup. So similar type schedule here in May.
Then you get SKC. That's a rough stretch right there. Those 3 games, you get 2 rivals back to back. That always takes a little more out of you. The adrenaline is higher. You get sapped a little easier. They should be good games, which is going to require 90 minutes of high quality footy from a lot of our players. So that's a tough week right there, and one that we would be feeling pretty demoralized if we don't get any points out of those 3 games, which is also quite entirely possible. I mean, that Houston club, man, I know that they were much better at home last year, but, they did go into LAFC in the regular season and get some points there. And obviously they're a talented club moving in the right direction. I
also think they had the best draft of any team yesterday, but that's my uneducated take. Bro, they grabbed Silla too, the Clemson kid. Who is rumored to be going to Europe, but they have his rights now if they can get him to stay.
Good for them. Good for them. Pay you later, pal. Park, San Jose again. Portland to round out that month at home.
I mean, that might be one of the easier stretches just based off last year's results.
I would say that after you get through that week there with the starting with Dallas, moving into the Kansas City game. Little time to relax, recuperate, travel out to California.
Yeah.
That would be a nice stretch to get a road win there in San Jose, and then hopefully get some points at home versus Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, and Paul, we're going to talk a little bit more about the draft here in a little bit because obviously the trade went down with Austin and then we grabbed a guy in the second round. But yeah, and didn't even finesse their way. Houston just stood pat, and those guys fell to them. June here, again, no Copa Tejas matches in there. Looks like we may have a little international break there in early June. And then, packing the matches in there, 15th, 19th, 22nd, 29th to close out June. No July 4th game this year, but NYC does come to town. So July 17th at Dallas, that would be our second Dallas Copa Tejas match, our third of the season against Dallas. And then Copa Tejas would conclude, at least for us, I haven't looked at the dates of the Houston-Dallas matchups yet, but September 21st, at Q2 Stadium against the Orange team. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for our last Copa Tejas match of the year, and about the same time as 2023 in terms of when this will actually be decided. And again, I haven't looked at those Dallas dates yet, but it would be nice if we aren't waiting on the outside for a result to win the Copa, that maybe we either already have it sewn up or can clinch it with a win there against Houston at home.
I mean, we controlled our own destiny last year and we squandered it. So, I mean, hopefully, we're looking at best case scenarios for some of these games, looking at worst case scenarios, and worst case scenario, if we at least have something to play for there on the 21st in regard to Copa Tejas, that's okay with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always like beating those fuckers.
Yep. And we've done so more often than not. Let's talk about some of these Eastern Conference teams. We already touched on Philly a little bit. Again, that's obviously going to be a really tough match early in the season there at Q2. I think that, to be honest, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think about CONCACAF Champions Cup and who has qualified for that. I'm not sure if Philly is back in or not. But you also see that the back-to-back Eastern Conference games, they're going on the road to Orlando. I think road Orlando is tougher than home Philly.
I agree. I totally agree. When we were looking at it earlier, I said you could potentially, get some points off Philly there at home, but traveling to Orlando and playing them, that is not something that I'm looking forward to and feeling confident about getting points out of.
All right, so I'm pulling up here CONCACAF Champions Cup teams, Major League Soccer, Cincy, St. Louis, Orlando, New England, and the Dynamo. And then Nashville and Philly is in because of Leagues Cup third place. So I guess that would be a potential benefit here in March for us, is that St. Louis on the 9th, Philly on the 16th, Orlando on the 23rd, all of those teams participating in the CONCACAF Champions Cup at some point during that month. So we know that those rounds are two-legged. So they'll have 2 extra games on their schedule. So that could maybe be a little bit of a boost for us in terms of how fresh the legs are there for those teams early in the season.
Absolutely. And I mean, a club like Philly, obviously one of the powerhouses of this league, is going to want to have a good showing in that cup. So you could see some rotation. I'm not banking on it. I'm not going to, take it into too much of account when I'm looking at this early start that is going to be challenging.
Yeah, no question. So we've got some more comments in here. Martin pointing out no Copa America international break for MLS is abysmal. Yes, but if they're not going to take it, I think we're in a good spot because look, these other teams just stop signing so many good players. We will have most of our guys available to us during that time. So we need all the help we can get here. And such a difference from this day last year, where we were doing the same stream. A lot of our friends were in here with us, and all of us are looking through the schedule, boom, win, maybe a draw there, win. And now it's just the complete opposite.
I remember, and I'm definitely keeping it in the back of my mind as to not get too excited, potentially embarrass myself. Yeah, man.
Reglis in here confirming Dallas Dynamo's last game for Copa Tejas is May 18th. So we will have two?
May 18th?
Yeah, so our last two, we will kind of control our own destiny there in the last two games against Dallas and Houston for the Copa.
I'd love some sort of explanation as to why. I guess it's just because they don't even acknowledge Copa Tejas as anything, which I understand.
Yeah, for sure. But it would just, I feel like it feels like it's so simple. If we all have to play somebody 3 times or 2 teams 3 times, why would you just not let the Texas teams do it? Why would you not let the Cascadia teams do it in the Pacific Northwest? Things like that.
It does seem like it would be a good idea for the league, just because that the rivalries here aren't like fully entrenched when you're talking like Lakers, Celtics, or Patriots and whoever, Chiefs, fucking whatever, thousands of teams they beat.
Right.
So having that local kind of rivalry, I think is just a good thing for the league. So I do think that trying to maximize those games would be a good idea. But again, that's why we host a podcast and don't get paid to make MLS schedule.
Right. So we talked about those two, right? The first home and away match. Then in July, talking about the Eastern Conference home and away matches, we host NYCFC right there after the 4th of July. And then Charlotte comes to town a week later. That's another double game week with Seattle or NYCFC. Then there's a week break. Seattle at home, double game week at Dallas for Copa Tejas, and then we host Charlotte FC. Charlotte, definitely one of the teams that I think we should be happy to see, not just on our schedule, but coming to Q2. That's one of those. And, there were plenty last year. It was like, that has to be 3 and it should be 3 and it wasn't 3 at home. Mm-hmm. But that is one of the few games on the schedule where I say that has to be 3.
I'm with you there, and I'm looking at this Seattle matchup, and I'm saying, man, I really like the fact that they have to come down here in July as opposed to us playing them at home in February or March. That's what it was. Do you want them to get them down here in the heat? Because, that is one of the advantages here, playing in the
so we claim.
We
just based on our home schedule last year, our home results last year.
We really held on to that one as long as we could. So roll it over to this next season, and Seattle, come down here and get a good sweat.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I notice about this summer schedule as well is Q2 7:30, Q2 7:30, Q2 7:30, Q2 7:30. Why are we still bullshitting ourselves that we're going to start these games at 7:30? It's going to be too hot. It's 8 or 8:30. We can't just get out ahead of that. I don't know. And then the Eastern Conference slate finishes up on the road at Toronto, September 14th. That is coming off of another international break. You see between that August 31st match, home against Vancouver, on the road at Toronto. And then you go straight into a double game week, road Toronto, road LAFC, and then we have to finish off Copa Tejas at home. So it's never going to be easy with this MLS schedule and how congested it is.
No, of course not. And, you look at the Western Conference, and there's just a lot of quality teams, it's got some top heavy hitters at the top of the board there, but there's a lot of quality clubs. To me, if you can get 3 points there at Toronto, maybe get some rotation there, going up to LAFC and just taking it on the chin, and then preparing yourself for Houston on the 21st, I could be satisfied with that. It doesn't seem with our Eastern Conference opponents that it's too brutal. Now, I did proclaim that Nashville-Austin beef was over, and I see that MLS did not get my email.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming out of the Leagues Cup break at Nashville, and hopefully we don't have as much time to prepare for that because, number one, we would want a better showing in Leagues Cup, and 2, 3.5 weeks off did not do us any favors last time because we set the record for goals against, our club record rather, being here saying at least most of the quick turnarounds are at home or in Texas games, no long travel during those short weeks. I agree. Outside of this September short week where you go at Toronto, at LAFC, then back home in a 7-day span. P-Mike in here. Let's do this in a second here. You give us 3 away games the North End boys are eyeing so we can make plans. Paul said, almost glad we don't have to juggle 4 tournaments. Yeah, almost glad. Almost glad. And then Open Cup, hopefully we play San Antonio. That's what I've been saying for 2 years, man. I want to see SAFC again, and we can talk about the Open Cup here in a few minutes. Some developments there today. Let's scroll through the road games here, E, and let's give the people what they want. What are our top 3 road matches that we may be eyeing here? Again, still 2 months out from the season. I don't think in this first portion, I don't think I see any that I'm super high on. Like Seattle would be great. I don't know. It's so early in the season. It's still cold a little bit there. Like I'd rather go up to Seattle in the summer months. And so it just doesn't really jive with this year's schedule.
So he's saying potential games to go to.
Mm-hmm. What are we eyeing? I mean, obviously the Texas ones are on there, right?
Is he Mike paying for this?
Yeah.
On these trips, brother? Because we're going to LA.
Well, and like, you know, I don't know. I know it's not a Copa Tejas match, but 420 in Houston sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't want those clowns harshing my vibe.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, give me another scroll here. Let me take.
All right, here we go into May and early June.
Well, I mean, one of the North End Pirates has already declared Vancouver
birthday trip
away there, so that might be on my list.
Definitely. Are you allowed into Canada?
I was gonna ask. You took my joke because I was gonna ask. Do they allow pirates in Canada? Definitely going to Dallas again. Got to get that taste out of my mouth from last year and that just crushing defeat.
Yeah.
But outside of that, give me some more scrollage.
Well, and it's also like, because I don't feel like I want to do Dallas twice because that stadium sucks. It's miserable there when it's hot. So like, do we do that early season one? Or I guess, are they coming here? Yeah, see, that first one, this would not be a Copa Tejas match, this 5-11. So I guess that's one thing we should revise. Am I tripping here? Where are the 3? So like home Dallas, this early Dallas will count because we have 2 road Dallas matches. So I think it would be the second road Dallas match that would count. We'll have to see what the committee says. Like that, we're not going to get a true answer until they figure it out. But so this first Dallas match, this one absolutely will count because we have to have a home match. Okay,
beautiful. Well, looking at that St. Louis game, I would love to make it to that game. Get to City Park. I've never been to St. Louis, and you know I might be rolling the dice with an ass whooping there, but I would like to.
Well, we get to see our buddy Profe. You know, he's going back home for that match as he did this year.
Very nice. I didn't know this from St. Louis. Cool.
So, and B saying, just think amongst the trees there in Vancouver.
Very much so.
Of course, Mike down for Vancouver, and good to see our boy Jesse, the archivist, I think, for the North End Pod, saying second road match doesn't count from what he's seen in this last hour or so. So then I think the May one is the one we're going to then, right?
The Vancouver or the Dallas one?
Dallas, yeah. Dallas first away at Dallas is the Copa Tejas match.
Very nice.
So then that's one then, May 11th. We're going to that.
Okay. Give me some scroll.
All right. Scrolling along.
Not going to Utah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going to Colorado in June.
That would be nice.
Got some friends up there, so it wouldn't be too difficult to have a place to stay.
Yeah.
Let's keep scrolling. Scrolling.
Nashville.
The beef is over, but I would go to the game. I think that might be. I got some friends there in Nashville too. So P. Mike, talk with our secretary Zach and get this squared away.
Travel agent Zach also.
Travel agent. Good. I was saying I wanted to see RSL at home there on the 28th. That'll be fun. And it'd be nice to go out to LA though. I'd love to go to LA in October.
Yeah, I mean, you could do. Look, if you come into some newfound wealth, right? You could do the Portland weekend, LA. Actually, that is Portland midweek, LA weekend. That would be a hell of a trip there. Go up to the Pacific Northwest and then down the coast to LA. That's something to look at as well.
That'd be wonderful. P. Mike, I'm down for Nashville though, brother. Let's do that.
Yep. Let's see, Matthew in here. Good to see you, Matt. Would y'all take Charlotte, Toronto, and Colorado losses for undefeated against the Texas clubs?
No, I definitely would not. Just because I feel like you've got to get as many points out of those 3 games as you possibly can. And I don't think I'm going to be foolish enough to think that we can pull off the undefeated record versus those 2 quality clubs in Dallas and Houston there.
Yeah. So I did, Matthew also bringing up here the home and away schedule printout from the club, saying that he thinks it leaks the away kit. You think just like with the style of the poster here, or like what am I missing, Matthew, on like where do you think it's just like this style with like kind of the music on there?
That beige color there? That's beige,
guess.
yeah.
It would be cool to have that beige with that like dark green on there on that right side.
Dark not bad.
Yeah, the color.
I like the green on the I like the green on the beige side. I think it works better than that other green with the black, to be honest.
Oh yeah, and then
it's more muted. It's you get so much when you just get so much when you listen to the North End Pod. You get weather reports, you get fashion advice, you get color schemes. We'll bust out the color wheel. The colors of the kit are on the right. Ooh, creamy, dreamy. Very nice.
So
I like that.
Matthew was saying if you flip it on the side, you see the skyline there, right? That would be kind of cool for sure. There's a skyline on the other side too in black and green.
Take out that Rice Owl building.
Yeah, right. Get the Frostbank Tower
out of there.
Yeah. So that is an interesting little tidbit there as well. Appreciate you.
I think we got a pretty good draw with these Eastern clubs, to be honest.
Same. Yeah, it could be so much tougher.
Absolutely. I mean, because Philly and Orlando, and those are early. Those are early, so there's plenty of time to recover if you really fall flat on your face there. But Charlotte, Toronto, I don't see them making any sort of, they'd have to make a complete overhaul to be relevant, at this point. So I think that's a pretty solid draw with the Eastern Conference clubs that we're getting. Obviously, Nashville, a talented team too, and going there would be, a challenge to get 3 points. Would be super satisfied with 1 though.
Yeah, I mean, so our the Eastern Conference schedule, we catch the 2 seed Orlando, we catch Philly. Both of those are so early though. We talked about that earlier in the stream. Nashville was the 7 seed last year on 49 points there. Charlotte was the 9. They were in that wild card match, right? NYCFC was 11th. I would expect them to be better just with the power of Citigroup behind them. They can reload so fast. And then, of course, Toronto was the wooden spoon winners. And, even if they're better, how much better are they really going to be? Because, I think the word is that they're losing the Italians pretty soon. Those guys clearly do not want to be there anymore.
Hell no, they do not. And I mean, that actually might help them more because the dysfunction that they were creating was obviously really, really detrimental to that team. So that could be, addition via subtraction. But I do like the draw. You gotta beat Charlotte at home. These are must wins. If we're going down this home list right now, these are some must win games. Colorado on decision day is a must win.
Yeah.
I think Charlotte is a must win for sure at home. Mm-hmm. Portland, not that great away from the Northwest there or the Pacific Northwest. So I think that is 3 points you have to get. And I want to throw Sporting KC in there just because every time I don't know if it's just recency bias and, we've been constantly jockeying with them for position last year. Yeah. And they're, fresh in my mind. But still NYCFC at home, I think that's very winnable with the travel. And that's on July 8th. I can't tell.
Which game was that?
NYCFC. The 6th?
Oh, it's that is July 6th, 7:30 p.m. So 8:30 p.m.
Yep, it's gonna be cooking. So we'd like that. These are some must-win games for me. Toronto away, I think is a must-win. They suck. They're a bad team. You got to get 3 points there. In Colorado on June 19th, I believe. June 18th. I can't tell. Whatever. I think that's a must-win. You got to get 3 points up there. We really shot ourselves in the foot last year when we did not execute up there in Colorado. That was one of the most disappointing, demoralizing, shitty losses we had in a year filled with demoralizing and tough and shitty losses.
Yeah, and I think to finish off Matthew's question there, I would not take losses against Charlotte, Toronto, and Colorado to go undefeated against the Texas clubs, because I think that would just be indicative of this team being awful again. Like, you're not losing to all three of those lower, seeded teams, lower caliber teams. And then, like, it would be great, but like, we just did that where we lost to people or teams that we should not have lost to and still somehow won the Copa Tejas. Like, and that was cute and all at the end of the season. And we all sarcastically celebrated, or not all, but we did. But I just think that would be so indicative that we just have not made any sort of improvement if we're losing to all three of those teams. That you got to at least get 6 points out of that.
Got to get, because I agree. You got to get something. Can we go back to the original schedule there? So we saw how we opened, and we dove into that. I want to see how we close. Obviously, we got Colorado Rapids there on decision day, which is nice. There's not a lot of teams that you can look at and be like, oh yeah, I really want to play them with our roster in its current state. So you see the beginning of the season is tough, challenging, rough games. Got to go places that we don't necessarily want to go. But let's see how we close.
Yeah, I think especially like maybe starting after Leagues Cup here at Nashville, then back home the next week for Vancouver, and then you get a break. Yep. And I just think like this isn't an easy slate coming out of the Leagues Cup, because Nashville, you got to respect them. Vancouver's still going to have the firepower. LAFC, obviously, away there. And then you've got a short week, Copa Tejas and RSL. We know they can be up and down no matter where you play them. But it's definitely an easier slate coming out of Leagues Cup than it was last year.
And look, it's definitely a better close than it is a start to this season. I think I would much rather have that. You win some cup, you have a couple surprises early. You catch a couple teams who haven't gotten the rust off or still trying to figure some things out, and you're rolling into the rest of the season with some house money. So closing out with Colorado, I like that. Galaxy, they've made moves. They're clearly trying to improve that roster. They're clearly trying to get the support of the fan base back, the supporters groups back, trying to make a lot of changes there. But still, you can go in there and beat them. Absolutely. Yeah, I know we have had success doing that in our short tenure, but that is a game. You can close out this October month with 9 points. That's not completely out of the question.
Absolutely. I think
if this is LAFC, you got St. Louis later, and then you throw in Colorado, it's like, well, then you have to beat Colorado, because the chances of getting any points off those two clubs right there is difficult. So I'm a fan of how we close it. As much as my attention went to the quality of the teams we were facing to start, I will take this last month of October here for us to hopefully be jockeying for some playoff position, securing a home playoff game.
Exactly. Of course, it could all look different by the end of the season in terms of how these teams are constructed, injuries, signings. We have a summer transfer window, and the winter transfer window hasn't even started in terms of the Euro window, where we're going to see internationals coming to MLS for all 29 teams. I would expand that sample size at the end to that Salt Lake match because of that double game week there, September 28th, October 2nd, October 5th. I think out of those 12 possible points, 9 is very realistic. Win the 2 home matches and steal a game on the road there. And realistic in the sense of we are assuming health and that we are somewhat improved here, especially after 2 windows at this point of the season. We will have had the winter window and then, of course, the secondary summer window. It could not have worked out better for decision day. You have to play a Western Conference opponent, and we get the worst one at home. So hopefully that is a celebration, a coronation of us getting back into the playoffs, hopefully into the top half of this Western Conference. But if you need points on decision day, we could not have had it break better for us in terms of the schedule.
I concur.
Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what happened after we shut the stream off yesterday, because we went and did 35-40 minutes on Nate Jones, the center back that Austin drafted with the 5th pick. And then, of course, an hour later, he was traded. So what I'm going to do here, we did pick up a second rounder in Bryant Farcarloon is my best attempt at that. I apologize to Brian. Obviously, we're going to get that down. But let's go ahead and let's let Bryant's highlights run as we did yesterday with Nate, and talk about what happened here with the club yesterday. After we shut the stream off, right, we knew Nate Jones had been drafted with the 5th, and Austin FC was holding the 34th pick, which was 5th overall there in the 2nd round. The news came that we had a trade. Austin FC dealt Nate Jones and the 34th pick to the Colorado Rapids in exchange for $250,000 in GAM. That's 2024 GAM, so for this coming season. And then the 31st pick, so we added $250K in GAM, moved up 3 spots in the 2nd round, and sent Nate Jones to Colorado. So with that 31st pick, we selected Bryant Farkarloon. I'm going to get it down. I promise. They probably have a pronunciation guide down here for me. So
I would think so.
They actually don't. They don't. So I'll blame the club for not giving me one quite yet.
I watched this yesterday after we took him. And look, strong on that right foot. He got some burst. Clearly not afraid to let that thing rip.
Yeah. But when he gets some space, he's dangerous.
And he knows how to create space. You see right here, that touch to that right foot just so he can get underneath it. That's very encouraging. Would you have been more upset if we took Sag and then traded him?
Yes.
Okay. So it wasn't worst case scenario that we just didn't get him.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I was able to watch these highlights, and I was encouraged. It's a 2nd round pick. I really don't know where he's going to fit in right now, but yes, the GAM is the most wonderful thing about that. And as I have been preaching for a while, I very much am of the mindset that Roto is trying to get to some certain figure, and this European window opens, and then the mercenaries, they arrive. That's what I tell myself before I go to bed at night, and hope for some good news in the morning. But man, he's an encouraging looking player. Clearly not afraid. Not afraid of the moment. Knows for the goal. Physicality. You see that? I'm sorry, that wasn't him there. But he does have some clips here in this highlight reel where it's shows
backflip celebration.
There we go.
Stephen Anor, who?
That's right. Wants to get back to that right, the cut there, and gets just as soon as he has a little window of space, he's letting that thing go.
Yeah,
I think played in Texas, right? So he's from Texas, Rio Grande Valley.
So originally from Monrovia, Liberia, and then came over to begin his collegiate career at Houston Christian, where he recorded 17 goals and 8 assists in his 47 matches for Houston Christian. And they listed it as Houston Christian, but I think he was at HBU, Houston Baptist.
Clearly
you see that. Yeah. You see it from these highlights. So I think that was wrong. Houston Christian, if I recall correctly from my recruiting days, is a high school, a private high school there in obviously Houston. In his final year at Houston Baptist, he scored 9 goals, 3 of which were match winners. Then this past year, he was a grad transfer to UTRGV, which I saw a lot of people saying, that university exists? And I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense that people who, aren't into small college sports wouldn't know that school exists, but it very much does. Shout out to Coach Ryan Marks, right? Ex-St. Ed's coach, down to RGV there for a few years. That's how Andre Cook ended up at St. Ed's. That's how he ended up there, is Ryan Marks taking the job at UTRGV. So again,
didn't he go to Permian Basin?
No, D1 RGV, Permian Basin D2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look, he's just with the Hodder signing as well, you're starting to see a profile that we're kind of looking for here. Some speed. Obviously, like you said, he's a graduate transfer, so he's a little older.
He's 22.
Has a more developed body frame and everything like that than those younger GA prospects would. This was an encouraging highlight clip to watch, and I don't know if everyone's going to stay tuned in here, but I would watch it because you can see how he wants to shoot and how he wants to get that ball on his right foot and let that thing go. And we've been clamoring for someone who's not afraid to let things rip. So I with the GAM return and with the knowledge that the priority has been to clear up the cap space, to have the most amount of GAM available. It's a solid move. You know, Nate, we barely knew you, brother. We got excited for you. Best of luck to you in Colorado.
Yeah. And so the thing, I think I don't have much to add on your assessment there of Bryant. Like, I think he is an intriguing prospect. He seems like the best comp I could make, again, without seeing him live, was like he looks a little bit like a lower level Hodder O'Brien.
That's what's in. He fits the same profile.
Yeah, but I also think I would be somewhat surprised if we saw Bryant playing for the first team in a league match. I think this is going to be a lot of action at the pitch, which is great. Like, we're going to have to replace some of that firepower that we know we've lost with FC2. And then, like, obviously the ceiling outcome here is that Bryant continues to improve and with, you know, the resources and training staff that he has here, that he can maybe develop into somebody that we're putting onto the first team roster. But yeah, you look at that right foot, I worry a little bit. And again, this is just a highlight tape, but this is supposed to be the best of a player, right? I worry that he's a little bit, like, very easily scouted and kind of taken out of his game at the MLS level. And I think that might be a hurdle to him getting to the first team. But
I mean, this is looking like a David Rodriguez kind of replacement, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Guy on the wing.
Yeah.
Some talent. I mean, obviously, this isn't going to give an complete and accurate breakdown of everything that this young man is capable of.
Yeah.
But with, you know, David and his creativity and the way that he was able to get that little amount of space to get his shot off was something I always appreciated about him. And David, I will miss you, my brother. I hope you have a great career there with Atlas, right? Or does he? Atlas?
San Luis? I don't remember if he's Atlas or San Luis. One of David, I think, is San Luis, and I think Alonso was Atlas, I think. Okay, Jesse in here saying that he thinks Bryant goes by Jimmy. Saw a bunch of people calling him that on his signing post, the draft post, and everything. So some good intel there by Jesse. Thank you, sir.
And look, you know, we had the Nate Jones pick, and we were breaking that down yesterday. It was like, we don't expect to see this guy for the first team, right? So, and, you know, if we're trying to improve and we have aspirations of being in the playoffs next year, hopefully in the upper half of those seeds there, a dude like Nate Jones isn't pushing you to that level.
Right.
You know, trading Nate Jones, getting that GAM, and then signing somebody, that pushes you to the next level. And then with this, you know, you have a guy that you can develop. So I am all for the trade. Like I said, the window for me, I know that Roto knows that, you know, the heat is on a little bit. We are expecting results. We traded a fan favorite player. We made some tough decisions. We traded Nicky. We cut guys. We let dudes go. We let Kippy go. We traded these guys. So it's like,
I mean, traded Diego, right? That's where it started.
Well, I said no. It was my first one. I said the fifth.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
So it's like, you know, the expectations are people want results, and you can only promise so many windows going forward, and it's like, you know, patience and that. But being able to secure somebody who's going to make an actual impact for the first club, which I think we're going to be able to do with that GAM that we opened, was the priority that I wanted. You know, again, I don't see this dude. I don't see Jimmy, you know, contributing to the first team here.
Yeah, I agree. And in terms of that GAM, one thing that we'll have on next week's episode is as full an accounting as possible of all the moves that have been made since July 1st of last year, or this year, 2023, which is the first date that Roto was officially the sporting director. Because whether you think it's fair, I just think it's fair to include all moves since that time, even if we think some of those earlier July moves were already in the works before he got here. It is his tenure, so I want to attribute everything, including the Matt Hedges trade, which like puts a pretty big dent in the space and the GAM that we have collected, because we sent out, right, I think 375K with 100K conditional in 25 GAM, and we added 900K of Matt Hedges' salary. So, but even with Hedges, and I think we have moved an international spot in that time that I didn't find last night. I was loosely trying to do the math, and without any international spot trades or any of the, you know, smaller moves around the fringes that we made, was around 1.3 million in cap space plus GAM that we have opened up or created there. And then if you get all that conditional, it's closer to 2 million. And again, that could be even higher because I'm pretty sure we sold at least one international spot last season at the end of the window. So we'll talk more about that next week. But yeah, adding 250K in GAM, something that we can actually use this year for sure to improve the team, over waiting multiple years, most likely for a guy like Nate Jones to be ready to compete with the other 3 starters that we have, or guys that are starting caliber for sure. So ultimately on the day, I guess let's do this. If you had to give a letter grade to what Roto and the team did yesterday, what would you give it?
I'm going to sound like just such a homer because I'm going at least a B plus.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say B.
You know, you move off a guy who was shooting up draft boards, clearly had a lot of interest from other teams. You probably have a lower grade than me because of your obsession with SAG.
Yeah.
But look, man, you get that money. And like I said, we need guys who we can put out at the queue. We need guys who can play at the queue.
The GAM is way more valuable than anybody that next year. It's more valuable than anybody that went in the draft yesterday. Going, years down the line, we could see some of those guys that we maybe passed on coming back to haunt us. But I don't think we can worry too much about that right now.
I agree. And it's like that just doesn't fit this team's timeline right now, Yeah. And you talked about the Hedges move. And I'm of the mindset that was just of the part of the circumstance this club was in last year. Underperforming, frustrated fans, calls for the coach's head. It seemed like a move to appease, trying to fight for that 9th playoff spot and salvage any sort of, success from that last season.
Right.
I do think that we need to take everything into account that Roto has done. And that includes the Hedges, and that includes obviously the Fagundes move and all of that. But man, I'm just waiting for that European window to open.
Yep. Same here. Hey, our buddy RB in the chat, and he said Texas too hot for Messi, I guess. No Texas teams playing Inter Miami. I will say the other 2 Texas teams have had their shot already. Right, Leagues Cup, Dallas got to play him, and then Open
Houston.
Cup final. Yeah, Houston got to take on Miami. And we took on Miami the week before he signed. So just bad timing for Austin. But, to be honest, man, we all want to see Messi, right? Especially at Q2. If you're a season ticket holder, you're grandfathered into a Messi ticket there. It would be great. From a wins and losses perspective, I'm happy to not see Messi because that's not a win. I don't care who we bring in, man. If they've got their guys healthy, they're going to beat anybody who they want to.
Yeah, I mean, you got Suarez, Messi, Busquets,
Jordi Alba, and the young Kramaski's a year older. Calendar's still in there.
Good, man.
Bro, there's a rumor that they might replace Calendar with De Gea.
What?
Yeah. Incredible.
Oh, no way. De Gea?
That's what I heard. I don't know.
Reliable? Reliable source?
I think it was Extra Time they were saying that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well,
God help us.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to play him next year until we meet him in the cup, right? Cup final, that is. And speaking of cups, last thing we want to talk about here on this episode of the North End Podcast is the official statement from U.S. Soccer this morning about Major League Soccer and the Open Cup. And it reads, MLS has requested to allow MLS Next Pro teams to represent MLS in the 2024 Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. After thoughtful consideration, we have informed MLS that the U.S. Soccer staff recommendation, which was adopted by the Pro League Task Force, is that the request be denied. As we move forward, we will continue our review of the Open Cup to ensure it aligns with the U.S. Soccer strategic pillars. We remain committed to addressing the needs and concerns of all our members, including MLS and other stakeholders, to enhance and improve the U.S. Open Cup. And Mooch, not a fan of that statement, I guess, as he goes to take care of Mr. Mooch man there. But it kind of appeared this reads to me, everybody, that MLS announced that we were going to use the Next Pro teams in the Open Cup while they had put in a request to US Soccer or to the Open Cup committee or what have you. And so like they put out the press release that they were going to do this before they had the go ahead. And I don't know, man, like I guess they just figured that they would take the PR hit that this has already been. But to me, this just makes MLS look even more silly throughout this whole thing. So if anybody, I mean, you could see Ari's in here. Yeah, they did. Laughable US Soccer sticking it to the man. I don't know, man. Like, obviously, we had seen folks say, and we had kind of discussed in the last few days after that decision that we didn't think this was necessarily over, that we could still see the first teams playing in the cup games. And to me, like, I just don't understand. You can already play your Next Pro team in the cup. You have an expanded roster, right, for the Open Cup. I think you can bring guys up for like LAFC played their Next Pro team plus the Jakupovic guy on the road in an Open Cup game last year. There's nothing stopping the teams if you don't want to play your first team guys in these games, especially in the beginning stages of the tournament. You don't have to. So I don't get it, and this just makes the league look worse, I think.
It absolutely does, and with a league that has a long track record of doing things improperly, this is just added to the list here. I like how they just really went out of their way to like spread the blame out for this. Yeah. It's like, oh, this staff, by the recommendation of this task force, request be denied. And that's what I think. It's like, what is happening behind the scenes where there's such a clash here? Like it does not make sense. Please, you went out of your way to elaborate on like who was involved in this decision. Tell me what the U.S. Soccer strategic pillars are. Getting bounced in the fucking World Cup. Like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I again, U.S. Soccer has a responsibility to all of the divisions. So again, they're backing up all the other lower level teams that would be affected, not just the tournament, but the lower level teams that would be affected by this decision by the league. So like, I liked to see this come out this morning just because they're calling MLS on their bluff, I guess. I think that would be fair to say. And it just, the league kind of showing its ass here and trying to swing dick and the U.S. Soccer Federation just being like, no. Request denied. So obviously this will continue to play out, but I think if I had to make a call right now, you're asking me, Nerf gun to my head, do the first teams participate or not? I think they end up participating. And again, probably a number of teams doing what they always do and playing the backups or playing the Next Pro team. Like you can still do that and have the first teams technically in the tournament. So anything else for you here? I know Mooch is about done with this topic and this stream.
I put my shower's been clogged for 2 days, so I can't shower. So I put in a maintenance request, and of course they knock on the door.
Yeah,
in the 1 hour and 15-minute time frame we have to do the podcast.
Well, I think that can be a nice little segue to end this episode of the North End podcast. And if you've got 5 extra seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the pod, wherever you get your podcast, we would greatly appreciate it. And of course, to all your Austin FC friends, right? Drop the North End podcast, help us grow the pod in that fashion. And if you're watching live now on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, help us grow the pod. Hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this live stream, this episode, hit that thumbs up. Like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the schedule release of Austin FC. We will be back next week talking about everything in the Austin FC universe. Maybe we get some Verde smoke for Christmas. Who knows? Phoenix in here. Good to see Phoenix. So we're getting 25 wins this season, right, E? That sounds like where the line should be set, I think. And I think E taking the over. Yeah. I think E thinks 34 wins. At least that's what the prediction model is saying early on. RB saying, fuck Houston. We couldn't concur more. And Mike saying, just caught back up. MLS doesn't own the TV rights to the Open Cup, so they don't want to lose revenue on their product. I get it, but, oldest tournament in our country. we got to keep that. We got to keep that going, man.
Yeah, you're already gouging us elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then you just had the expanded playoffs, so it's like you were pulling in revenue there. But yeah, I get it, man. It usually boils down to those green pieces of paper, most decisions.
Yep. And B, last comment in here saying, great job as always, fellas. If I don't see you before February 24th, see you then in 123. Hey, holler at us about the next poker tournament. B, and that's a good point by Ari's. We will see you at Verde Hill if there are games, and I think we will get some of those in January. So once again, thanks everybody for tuning in, sticking with us, playing along. Everybody have a good holiday, Merry Christmas, and we will see you next time here on the North End Podcast. Until then, easy. I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.
1